Okay, let's unpack this. You've probably seen those charity envelopes asking for donations, right?
The ones that come through the door?
Exactly. Some
Yeah.
are plain, some have a bit more, maybe a mention of volunteers or a note about where the money goes.
Sure.
Now, if you were being purely logical, you'd think the envelope that clearly spells out the impact, the rational one.
Yeah, that should pull in the most money. It makes sense.
It feels like it should, but get this.
Mm.
Research has shown that sometimes those hyper-rational appeals actually reduce donations.
Really? Reduce them?
Yeah. Meanwhile, the envelopes that maybe tug at your heartstrings a bit or even just use slightly different paper, they can see a real boost.
Huh. That is counterintuitive, isn't it?
Totally. It suggests there's more going on than just cold, hard logic when it comes to why we do things.
Right, some other force at play.
And that other force, is what we're diving into today. Alchemy.
Alchemy. Okay, so we're not talking like medieval guys trying to make gold.
Huh? No, not literally turning lead into gold. Although, actually, that idea of transformation is surprisingly relevant.
Okay, so what is alchemy in this context?
It's about understanding when and why our standard logical thinking doesn't quite cut it, especially when dealing with, well, people.
And complex systems, right? Things that aren't neat and tidy machines.
Exactly. Think of it as seeing the hidden forces, the subtle shifts in perception and context that lead to these unexpected outcomes.
Got it. Like finding the hidden logic, or maybe the psychologic.
Yeah, psychologic, I like that. So our mission for you, our listener, is to equip you with a solid foundation in this alchemy.
Okay.
We're going to explore 3 key questions based on some really fascinating insights. And the goal is actionable knowledge, stuff you can use, not just theory.
Sounds good. So let's start with that first question then. What problem does this concept of alchemy actually solve?
Well, fundamentally, it tackles the limits of relying only on logic when you're dealing with humans.
Because we aren't robots.
Exactly. We aren't programmed with purely rational algorithms. Our sources point out we've got layers of emotions, biases, unconscious drives shaping our decisions.
It's like that analogy trying to run a horse on gasoline.
Perfect. It's just not the right fuel. Logic alone doesn't power human behavior.
And it's interesting because unlike a machine built for one job, complex systems, especially evolved ones like us, well, parts have multiple functions, don't they?
Yeah, depends on the context. Like the human mouth eating, breathing, talking.
Right, so if you apply rigid logic without seeing that flexibility, you can end up with conclusions that are just wrong. Nonsense, really.
Definitely. The source uses the appendix example. For ages, seen as useless, right? Logically, maybe get rid of it. But now we know it has a role in gut health. So whether something makes sense on paper matters less than if it actually works in the real world.
And that leads to a key point. Logical ideas can fail simply because people are, well, inconsistent.
Yeah, we don't behave like those neat economic models predict.
Not always, no.
There's that story about the wealthy person who rationally decides donating a big sum overseas is the best use of money.
Logically, a maximum impact, perhaps?
Right. But then they refuse a smaller loan to a friend who's struggling.
Ouch.
And the relationship just breaks down. The logical decision completely missed the human element, social bonds, obligations. That stuff isn't always logical.
Exactly. And this push for universal rules, this sort of naive rationalism, it forces us to ignore the specific context.
Which is often the most important part.
It really is.
And this is where it gets kind of cool.
Yeah.
The idea that the opposite of a good idea can be a good idea.
Intriguing. Like what?
Think about, say, London housing. Logic says if prices skyrocket, people move further out, right? Find somewhere cheaper.
Standard economics, yeah.
But often you see the opposite. People cling on, pay crazy money, maybe sacrifice other things.
Even if it doesn't seem rational.
Right. It defies simple logic, but it happens. There's something else driving that decision.
Okay, so that sets the stage. Logic has limits. So, moving to the second question. What are the key ideas, the principles we need to grasp here? And maybe some examples.
Okay, number one, absolutely crucial. The importance of context and perception.
How we see things isn't fixed.
Not at all. It's totally context dependent. That Pall Mall Club example is great. Affluent, conservative members.
Yeah.
But inside the club, they operate like socialists. Equal fees for everyone, doesn't matter how often you go.
But outside the club walls?
Their usual economic beliefs probably take over again. Context flips the switch.
That makes sense. And it connects to how narrow focus can make us miss things. Like the GPS versus the transit app idea?
Oh yeah, good one. The GPS gives you the logical shortest car route.
Which is useless if you're on foot trying to catch a bus.
Exactly. Each system is logical in its own little world, but ignores the bigger picture, the user's actual goal,
So you miss the obvious, simple solutions sometimes.
which ties into interpreting needs laterally, not literally. That engineer appointment window example is brilliant.
The long wait time complaints.
Yeah. The logical fix. Make the window shorter.
Yeah.
More efficient scheduling.
Okay.
But the real problem wasn't the wait length itself. It was the uncertainty. Not knowing when they'd show up.
The anxiety of waiting.
Precisely.
Okay.
And the solution. Super simple, low cost. Just text half an hour before arriving.
Addresses the emotional need, not just the logistical one. Minimal cost. Genius.
It really is. But it makes you wonder, why does stuff like that sometimes face so much resistance?
Well, the material points to vested interests, right? New ideas can threaten the status quo.
Like Harrison and his chronometer. Revolutionized navigation.
But the astronomers, who had their own methods, fought him tooth and nail.
Or Jenner and vaccination.
Yeah.
People were making money off the old way, variolation.
Right. So resistance isn't always about logic either.
And that's not just history. Look at e-cigarettes today.
Ah, yes. Contentious.
You had established public health folks, often invested in a sort of shame model for quitting smoking.
Right, the cold turkey approach.
Really resisting this alternative that, for many, seemed less harmful. And it came from a businessman, not one of them.
Plus, potential conflicts with pharmaceutical companies selling patches and gum.
Exactly. So it wasn't just pure science or logic driving the debate. It was about protecting positions, maybe profits.
And underlying that, maybe a misunderstanding of the behavior itself, like that gin and tonic placebo anecdote.
Right. The idea that smoking might be as much about the ritual, the habit, the association.
As the nicotine addiction itself, which could explain why vaping helps some people. It mimics the action.
Fascinating. And sometimes just managing perception is more powerful than objective change, like the Uber map.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic. It doesn't make the car come faster.
Not at all. But seeing it on the map, knowing it's coming, that ETA.
It kills the frustration of waiting, changes the whole experience.
Totally. Same wait time, completely different feeling. Perception management.
Which means you need an atmosphere where you can ask those seemingly dumb questions, like, why do people hate waiting?
Yeah. Seems obvious, but the real answer might unlock those clever, perception-based solutions.
Which brings us nicely to unconscious motivations.
Yes. The teeth cleaning example is perfect. Logically, it's for dental health, right?
Sure, preventing cavities, gum disease.
But if that was the only driver, wouldn't we brush after every single meal, like dentists recommend?
Probably, but we don't, mostly.
When are we most likely to brush? Before going out, before meeting people.
Ah, so the unconscious driver might be more about social consequences. Bad breath, food stuck in teeth.
Exactly. The hidden, perhaps unconscious social motive might be stronger than the logical health motive in shaping the actual behavior.
Very insightful. And we absolutely have to be careful with bad maths and misapplied logic.
Oh, definitely. Statistics without context can be dangerous.
The Sally Clark case is such a tragic example. Flawed probability calculations.
Presented as expert fact, contributing to a terrible injustice. Numbers aren't objective truth if the underlying assumptions are wrong.
It shows how easily data can mislead, even on a small scale, like your fuel efficiency story.
Oh, yeah. One wrong mileage entry threw everything off for months. You need context and careful checking.
So sticking rigidly to logic isn't always best. What about unconventional approaches?
Right. In competitive fields like hiring, predictable logic can be gamed.
Everyone knows the standard interview questions, the right answers.
Exactly. So maybe hiring that brilliant backgammon player, even if their CV wasn't a perfect match.
Gives you an edge because you're valuing a different kind of intelligence, one that's harder to fake.
And then there's the famous decoy effect.
The Economist subscription. Print only for $125. Web only for $59.
Or print and web for $125. The print-only option seems pointless, illogical.
But it makes the print and web bundle look like an amazing deal. It steers your choice. Pure psychology.
It's brilliant. And this links to the idea that reason might be more about justification than decision-making.
The argumentative hypothesis. We evolved reason to explain ourselves to others.
Yeah, to win arguments and maintain social standing, not necessarily to arrive at the best decision initially. Our gut makes the choice, then our brain finds reasons.
Interesting. Then there's the doorman fallacy.
Ah, equating strategy only with cost cutting.
Like replacing the friendly hotel doorman with an automatic door saves money.
But you lose that human touch, the sense of welcome, maybe even security. Was it really a net gain?
Depends what you value. And people's own motivations can clash with the business logic, too.
Like colleagues always asking for discounts, even if it hurts overall revenue.
Because their rationalization is, I got a deal, which feels good personally.
Even if it's illogical for the company, bottom line.
Okay, so we see the limits of pure logic, but where's the alchemy, the transformation part?
This is where psychology and design come in. Frederick the Great and the potatoes.
Right. Couldn't force peasants to eat them. Logic didn't work.
Nope. So he used psychology, made them seem exclusive, royal, planted them in royal gardens with guards who were told to be a bit lax.
So people would steal them thinking they were valuable.
Exactly. Psychological trickery transformed an unwanted vegetable into a staple food. That's alchemy.
And geographical alchemy, too, like Cornish sardines.
Yeah. Just adding that adjective boosts perceived value, boosts sales. The fish are the same. The perception changes.
It's all about framing.
And tackling psychological barriers can create huge change, like getting more women into computer science.
It wasn't just about the courses themselves.
No, it was addressing social perceptions, providing role models like at the Grace Hopper Conference, showing how coding can be used for social good.
Changing the meaning and perception of the field, true transformation.
Then there's the alchemy of design stuff that just fits us. Door handles, steering wheels.
Things designed around our evolved bodies, even if hands didn't evolve specifically to open doors.
Or ears holding up glasses. Perfect example.
Even things that seem inefficient, like the London cabbie's knowledge test.
That incredibly hard test of London streets seems crazy in the age of GPS.
But it acts as a massive trust signal, right? Anyone who invests that much time and effort isn't just a fly-by-night operator.
It signals commitment, trustworthiness, especially when you won't see that driver again.
Which ties into continuity probability signaling, building trust.
How do businesses show they're in it for the long haul, that they rely on repeat custom?
Like the difference between a tourist trap restaurant and your local pub.
Exactly. One optimizes for a single transaction, the other for ongoing relationships.
And small, costly signals can build that trust, like Five Guys extra fries.
Or a company investing heavily in training its staff. It signals they value the relationship.
Seems wasteful on the surface, but builds trust.
And communication, too. Humor, wit, bravery. They seem inefficient, but they cut through the noise, show personality.
Makes the message more memorable, more trustworthy.
Branding is basically this, isn't it? Like flowers evolving colors to attract bees reliably.
Businesses create identities to signal reliability and solve information asymmetry.
Where the seller knows more than the buyer. Think Eastern Bloc bread, no brand, inconsistent quality.
Versus a branded loaf where you know what you're getting. Branding is a quality signal.
Packaging does this too. Better aspirin packaging makes it seem more effective.
Even the placebo effect works when people know it's a placebo. Perception is incredibly powerful.
And products often have ulterior functions. A dishwasher isn't just for washing.
It's dish storage. A pool isn't just for swimming.
It's status signaling. A yacht isn't just transport.
It's about control, maybe, and our perception matters more than reality sometimes. Like thinking caffeinated booze makes you riskier.
Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't chemically. But if you believe it does, your behavior might change.
So this leads to that provocative question. Do illogical things work despite being illogical, or sometimes because they are?
Yeah, like costly signaling. The very illogicality, the unexpectedness, carries the message.
Because real life isn't a neat logic puzzle. Planning a trip to Gatwick isn't just the shortest route.
No. It's weather, traffic, luggage, risk tolerance, dozens of factors.
And brand preference often isn't about optimal, it's a shortcut, a heuristic for probably okay, not terrible.
In a world of uncertainty, avoiding a bad outcome is often more valuable than finding the absolute perfect one.
Which is satisficing, settling for good enough, not perfect optimization. It's often the most rational strategy in an irrational world.
Even game design gets this. Dart scoring is kind of weird, not perfectly logical like archery.
But it's arguably more engaging, more fun.
And we make choices based on defensive decision-making too.
Protecting ourselves from blame if things go wrong.
Like booking the flight to JFK instead of Newark for your grumpy boss, even if Newark is slightly better logistically. JFK feels safer, less likely to cause trouble for you.
It's all about perception driving behavior, not objective reality. Data models miss this all the time.
Totally. How words change, taste the Belgian biscuit example.
Or the focusing illusion we obsess over leather seats when buying a car.
But day to day, maybe cup holders or visibility matter more, but marketing leverages that illusion.
And things like pareidolia, seeing faces in clouds. Seems illogical.
But evolutionarily, better to mistake a rock for a face than miss a predator hiding. Low cost for false positive, high cost for false negative.
Even simple reframing works wonders. The pilot saying the bus will take you directly to passport control
Turns a negative bus into a perceived positive. Oh, direct service! Alchemy!
and we do it to ourselves. Sour grapes, sweet lemons, minimizing regret by changing the story.
Like getting a parking ticket and thinking, well, my contribution to local parks makes you feel better.
So you've got the logical air traffic controller mindset versus the Kramer mindset, afraid of the obvious, looking for the weird angle.
And sometimes the Kramer approach finds gold, like
Yeah.
changing register to continue on that website.
Tiny change, massive result, because it addressed the underlying anxiety about commitment. Pure psychology.
It just nails it. Strict logic can make you think you've solved the problem while missing a much better, simpler, psychologically smarter solution.
Okay, so that's the theory and principles, which leads to our final question. How could someone, say an entrepreneur or marketer in Romania, actually use these ideas?
Right? Application time. Well, first and foremost, you absolutely have to understand the specific Romanian cultural context.
Can't just copy-paste Western ideas. What are the local beliefs, habits, social signals? What counts as trustworthy or valuable there?
What seems illogical, but might just work in that specific environment.
And trust building is probably key. How do you signal long-term commitment in Romania? Maybe it's not just warranties.
Maybe it's visible local investment, community involvement, unexpected generosity that feels genuine.
Those costly signals we talked about, tailored locally.
And think about framing. How do you present your product or service so it resonates with Romanian values or addresses unconscious needs?
Could you use local traditions, history, even folklore in your branding? Create that emotional connection.
What about counterintuitive pricing? Could a higher price sometimes signal quality more effectively there?
Or could decoy options or clever bundling nudge choices in a way that works culturally?
And don't forget the senses. How could scent, packaging, aesthetics specific to Romania, or the ambience of a place enhance perceived value?
Like scenting the soap, creating a memorable sensory signature.
And really focus on reducing friction and anxiety. What are the specific pain points for Romanian customers?
Find those little psychological hurdles and apply simple, smart fixes like the continue button idea. Make it feel easy and safe.
Leverage social proof. Maybe local endorsements highlighting popularity within Romania are way more powerful than generic feature lists.
Especially if it's a more collectivist culture. What trusted local sources say matters.
And dig for those ulterior motives. What unspoken needs is your product fulfilling for a Romanian consumer? Status, belonging, nostalgia, comfort.
Better look beyond the functional purpose.
And crucially, experiment. Don't just rely on standard market research, which might be too logical.
Run small alchemical tests. See what actually resonates. What people do, not just what they say. Observe carefully.
Okay, so wrapping this all up. Alchemy, in this sense, isn't literal magic.
No, it's about understanding the magic of the mind psychologic, recognizing that narrow rationality has its limits.
And that by looking at perception, context, unconscious drivers, you can find solutions that seem almost magical because they bypass conventional logic.
Solutions that really work with how humans are.
So that brings us to you, our listener. Take a moment. Think about your challenges, your assumptions.
Where might a seemingly illogical, counterintuitive approach unlock something amazing in your life or business?
Stop being so damn logical.
Yeah.
Seriously, the real breakthroughs, the real magic often happens when you dare to question conventional wisdom, to defy what seems sensible.
Go out there and find your alchemical advantage, your competitors. They're probably too busy being rational and drawing straight lines to even notice the opportunities.
This thinking isn't for everyone, maybe. It's for those ready to think differently, maybe a bit sideways.
And achieve those disproportionate results. Go find your magic.